And we welcome you back into MidPoint. As you can see, Hillary Clinton addressing the United Nations right here. We're going to listen in. Her press conference, her news conference is not scheduled for a little bit later, but we do want to hear what she has to say here at the UN. Let's take a listen.
Serving in her country's parliament than anywhere else in the world. Today, thanks to the efforts of so many, women and girls have a much greater chance to live healthy and secure lives. But, and you knew there'd be a but the data also leads to a second conclusion. Despite all this progress, we're still not there yet. We're not there yet when we've nearly closed the global gender gap in primary school, but more than 30 million girls never go on to secondary school. We're not there yet when every year more than 1 million girls are never born because of gender-biased sex selection, mainly in China and India. We're not there yet when, despite having increased the number of countries prohibiting domestic violence from just 13 in 1995 up to 76 today, more than half the nations in the world still have no laws on the books, and an estimated 1 in 3 women is still subjected to violence. All the laws we've passed don't count for much if they're not enforced. Rights have to exist in practice, not just on paper. And laws have to be backed up with resources and political will, with prosecutors and police officers and judges trained and committed to enforcement. They have to be made real in people's lives. As our new report documents, deep-seated cultural codes and structural biases continue to hold back the full participation of women and girls and expose them to discrimination and abuse. I hope you'll explore the data yourself at noceilings.org. It's designed for casual visitors to gain insights quickly or for committed activists and researchers to dive deep. We want these statistics and the stories they represent to open eyes, stir debate, and spur action. So please visit, learn, share, tweet, organize, mobilize. Join us in making absolutely clear that the full participation of women and girls is the great unfinished business of the 21st century, and not just for women, for everyone. We know that the only way to achieve broad-based growth and prosperity in a competitive and interdependent world is to build economies and societies that work for everyone and include everyone. We can't afford to leave any talent on the sidelines. Take the United States. If we closed the gap in workforce participation between men and women, our economy would grow by nearly 10%. And the numbers are significant for other economies as well. That's the power of full participation, particularly in the business sector, and particularly in the formal business sector, where, as the Secretary General pointed out, it can be measured. It can go into the gross domestic product, not just change lives and families, but lift up societies and propel economies. We've proven that progress is possible, but we can't preach just to ourselves. We do have to reach out to men, to religious communities, and, as we're doing here, to businesses, to every partner we can find, and present that evidence. We need a strong goal on gender equality, and we need to integrate gender equality throughout all of the goals of the Global Sustainable Development Goals. It's important to do that because if it's not there, if it's not measured, there will be less of a force behind change. So let us make sure that in the Global Sustainable Development Goals, we zero in on the continuing gaps affecting gender. So from our perspective, now that we look back 20 years, I think we can be gratified that we have stuck together as a world, that we have continued to make the case and found new ways of making it. You know, I have to say, when I was Secretary of State and I would speak with my colleagues across the world about these issues, there was a moment when I often saw their eyes glaze over. And I could almost read their minds. Yes, I know she's going to talk to me about women. And I just have to put a smile on my face, and we'll get through this and go on to the important issues. That began to change as we saw more evidence, particularly about economic growth and the role the private sector can play in including more women and unleashing their talents and ambitions. From satellite television to Tumblr, technology is also helping to bring this to the attention of everyone. The momentum for change is here, but now we have to decide how we're going to respond. So I applaud all of you who have not just passed laws, but changed minds, not just mobilized data to make a case, but resources to make a difference, who have reached throughout your societies and throughout international organizations to ensure that the lives and stories of women are never lost. Bringing women and girls off the margins and into the mainstream of every profession, as well as every community and every country, has to be our mission now. The progress of the past 20 years was not an accident. It took commitment, it took accountability, it took unity, it took a lot of hard work. And the United States has a responsibility and continues to lead on these issues and to make our own country a real beacon for what is possible, whether that's equal pay for equal work or encouraging more women to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, or defending a woman's right to make her own reproductive health decisions. We have to be on the front lines with all of you. These issues remain deeply personal for me. My late mother was born before women in the United States could vote. She came of age at a time when there were very few avenues for education or employment for women, but she had real grit.
And there we have Hillary Clinton speaking at the United Nations right now in New York City, talking about her efforts with her new organization, NoCeilings.org, about increasing access for women to workplaces, about raising wages for women around the world, about women's rights as a whole. And this is obviously Hillary Clinton's area of expertise. She's been talking about this for a long time, but is it going to work? Of course, everybody really wants to hear her talk about those emails. We are learning that there is a news conference scheduled for later this afternoon. Hillary Clinton is expected to take questions, as she did during Bill Clinton's presidency, about the Whitewater scandal. But we are hearing that that news conference is going to be very brief, so it'll be interesting to see how many questions Hillary does take and what she has to say about the emails, about her private email server at her home, and her transparency. There was going to be some harsh criticism, too, as there has been already, about her efforts on women's rights. Carly Fiorina, who could be running for president as a Republican, has taken on Hillary head-on on this issue as a whole. Hillary Clinton speaking at the United Nations in New York City as we speak. Her much-anticipated news conference coming up later today. Stay with Newsmax TV and Newsmax.com for the latest on that situation. We'll have more here on the Cosby rape accusation case. Plus, Matt Van Dyke will join us. We'll talk about some things coming up.